No politician is dead until he admits it. Nixon said it, and by golly, Nixon was right. 6 years after defeat for the governorship of California, with his political career apparently in ruins, Richard Milhous Nixon has made a fantastic comeback. Married with 2 daughters, he was born in California. A leading lawyer, the vast income from his practice has helped materially with his presidential campaign. He was 8 years as Eisenhower's vice president and has experience and qualities which could well suit the present climate of dissatisfaction with the Democrats. Castigated by his opponents as Tricky Dick, the last man you'd buy a used car from, he's come up with the best trick in the book.
This is the building in Nuremberg where 20 top Nazis are being tried for many crimes, not the least of which is the breaking of 26 treaties, agreements and assurances. It's 10 o'clock on the first day and everyone in court stands up as the tribunal enters. 4 judges and alternate members, French, American, British and Russian. Lord Justice Lawrence, the President, with Sir Norman Burkitt at his right hand, opens the first trial of its kind that the world has seen.
It only remains for me to direct, in accordance with the provisions of the Charter, that the indictment shall now be read.
Defendants in the dock had had copies of the indictment for over a month, but it must be read.
Of crimes against peace, war crimes, and crimes against humanity, and of a common plan or conspiracy to commit those crimes, all as defined in
the reading of the indictment took all day, but the Nuremberg trial had begun. The second day of the trial was even more dramatic. The first incident was the objection by the defense that they had not had time to study certain documents. This is how Lord Justice Lawrence dealt with that.
The question that the provisions of Article 24 would be followed. But now we will adjourn for 15 minutes in which all of you may consult with your clients.
Okay, recording, that's all for now. We're adjourning for 15 minutes.
A scene of great animation followed, especially among the defendants and their counsel. Goering started writing volumes of notes. Ribbentrop got to work on his counsel. Hess stopped reading his novel and had a good look round. Keitel went into a huddle with Rosenberg. This sort of thing went on all through the 15 minutes, and then the tribunal returned. When all had taken their places, the President called on the defendants to plead.
The defendants to plead guilty or not guilty to the charges against them. Hermann Wilhelm Goering.
As you'll see and hear, Goering's attempt to make a speech was firmly dealt with by Lord Justice Lawrence.
Bevor ich die Frage des Gerichtshofes beantworte, ob ich mich schuldig oder nicht schuldig bekenne,
I informed the court that defendants were not entitled to make a statement. You must plead guilty or not guilty.
bekenne mich im Sinne der Anklage nicht schuldig.
Rudolf Hess.
Nein.
That will be entered as a plea of not guilty.
The next defendant called was Ribbentrop.
The
bekenne mich im Sinne der Anklage für nicht schuldig.
Wilhelm Keitel.
Ich bekenne mich nicht schuldig.
Next, Rosenberg.
Ich bekenne mich im Sinne der Anklage nicht für schuldig.
He was backroom boy number 1 in the Nazi setup.
Julius Streicher.
Nicht schuldig.
It would take too long to show them all, but you probably know Schacht, the Nazis' financial wizard.
Ich bin in keiner Weise schuldig.
And von Papen, ex-chancellor and ex a lot of things.
Ich bin keinesfalls schuldig.
Arthur Seyss-Inquart.
Ich bekenne mich nicht schuldig.
After the pleading, Goering again tried to make a speech. Some people are slow to learn.
You are not entitled to address the tribunal except through your counsel at the present time.
Well, they all pleaded not guilty. And then Mr. Justice Jackson, the chief American prosecutor, began his speech with these striking sentences.
The privilege of opening the first trial in history for crimes against the peace of the world imposes a grave responsibility. The wrongs which we seek to condemn and punish have been so calculated, so malignant and so devastating that civilization cannot tolerate their being ignored.
But let's pause for a moment to refresh our all too short memories of the Nazi plan and the vast misery it produced, the deliberate and ruthless crushing of Poland. The havoc all over the continent with all the attendant cruelties inflicted on millions of innocent people. The crimes committed in the name of Hitler and Nazism at sea. And what Germany called concentration camps. All these horrors we know and should never forget, any more than we forget what they did to Britain when we were alone and weak in arms, though not in spirit. The Nazi leaders who planned and executed aggressive total war against the civilized world can strut and bully and butcher no more. Yet brought to trial at last, they are to receive justice.
That four great nations, flushed with victory and stung with injury, stay the hand of vengeance and voluntarily submit their captive enemies to the judgment of the law is one of the most significant tributes that power has ever paid to reason.
The story of Nazi crimes is a long one. A particular aspect of Nazi organization was explained by Major Coogan, another American prosecutor, who went into details of the origin of the whole conspiracy.
First, a brief reference to the history of the Nazi Party. The court will no doubt recollect that the National Socialist Party had its origin in the German...
And the chart of Nazi organization was displayed in court, a sort of family tree with Hitler at the top. The demeanor of the defendants was interesting. Dönitz and Raeder, Dönitz apparently half asleep. Streicher, the Jew-baiter, he looks furious, but his fury is impotent. As for the rest of them, you can see for yourself.
In all three readings. In the official minutes of this cabinet meeting was the defendant Göring's announcement that he had ordered SA troops on the Polish border to be...
Goering may try to look as if he doesn't care, but the moment he has the chance, He gets very busy on his defense. Well, he needs to, and so do the rest. The trial, certain to be a long one, continues.
A great man is dead. His widow and his small children mourn him. The people he led mourn him, his people, and the people of all the world. They mourn John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States. Thus he looked in life, and this is the story of how he lived and how he died. Son of a financier and diplomat, a hero of World War II, senator, author. He married the girl photographer who came to take a picture of a famous young statesman, Jacqueline Bouvier. They loved each other. They loved life. He worked hard in Congress. And in 1956, he stood before the convention of his party to name a friend.
Fellow delegates, I give you the man from Libertyville, the next Democratic nominee, and our next President of the United States, Adlai E. Stevenson.
His friend failed. But 4 years later, Mr. Kennedy himself was named.
I can assure all of you here who have reposed this confidence in me that I will be worthy of your trust. We will carry the fight to the people in the fall, and we shall win.
The energy and the confidence of youth was in him. He fought against odds. He debated against his opponent, Vice President Nixon, face to face. He won a slender but telling victory, first of his Roman Catholic faith to be elected president, at 43, youngest ever voted into the office. And this was his credo.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man.
Back to the Congress where he served, he took his program. One aim, success in space concepts unknown before his time. A man of the 20th century. To his office, he brought the men near his own age who were dedicated to exploring the very heavens, his aim, the moon. In Vienna, Mr. Kennedy confronted his country's major adversary, Nikita Khrushchev of communist Russia. His aim, peace. His faith was strong. His family ties were strong. He saw grandmother as a young man should. Daughter Caroline was a joy to her father. And he a joy to her. Then a son was born. His daddy called the little one John John. They took an obvious pleasure in being a family. Because the president always is before the public, so is his family and their hearts. A mother and child. They lived in a big white house and had callers. Astronaut Gordon Cooper was one. President Kennedy had personal problems. A wartime back injury troubled him, put him on a stretcher once. Again left him on crutches. He took to a rocking chair. Rocking chairs became a national fad. But ailments and the rocking chair failed to keep him from the active life. Baseball's #1 fan. A Harvard man at Yale, and he never lost his humor.
It might be said now that I have the best of both worlds. a Harvard education, and a Yale degree.
He could be tough, too. Cuba became a crisis. Soviet Russia was installing missiles in Cuba. Maps proved it. The president signed a proclamation putting a quarantine on the Cuban island as long as Russia tried to develop it as a base for attack. Then, while the United States fleet went into action, he told the world,
"It shall be the policy of this nation to regard any nuclear missile launched from Cuba against any nation in the Western Hemisphere as an attack by the Soviet Union on the United States, requiring a full retaliatory response from the Soviet Union."
The warning was heeded. The Russians removed their missiles. Pursuing peace, he came to the United Nations. His plea eventually brought a measure of success, a first step.
The weapons of war must be abolished before they abolish us.
Russia, Great Britain, and the United States made a start. They agreed to a ban on atomic bomb tests. Pursuing freedom in Berlin. At the infamous wall, the president exposed himself to danger, where men seeking freedom had been shot down. At Checkpoint Charlie, everywhere people who saw a smiling face. Everywhere he went, crowds gathered to see the man who held a world's weight lightly on young shoulders. In Latin America, where he sought the people's cooperation for his alliance for progress. Many there were at arm's reach who could have done him harm, but he seemed to fear no evil from people. He radiated a hope, a promise, a strength fulfilled. He clasped their hands in friendship. He felt no peril. Then, on the 22nd day of November 1963, the varied paths of this man's life led him to Dallas in the state of Texas, a speaking tour. With him, Mrs. Kennedy and Vice President Johnson. Riding in the president's car was Texas Governor John Connally. The cortege of cars was covered by protecting Secret Service agents. The president was 46 years old. He had been 2 years, 10 months, and 2 days in his high office. A rifle in a window. Then, on that day, a bullet struck. President Kennedy was hit. Governor Connally was hit. The president was rushed to the hospital, his head cradled by his wife. It was noon when it happened. 30 minutes later, life was gone. A man accused as his killer was caught. Lee Harvey Oswald, 24, ex-Marine who once wanted to be a citizen of communist Russia. Oswald denied the shooting. The rifle was traced to him. There seemed to be no motive. 48 hours later, he too was slain. A horrified television audience saw him fatally shot by a Dallas man named Jack Ruby. President Kennedy's life was gone. His body was brought back to the Capitol within hours. Vice President Johnson had taken the oath of office succeeding him. and now spoke to the nation.
We have suffered a loss that cannot be weighed. For me, it is a deep personal tragedy. I know that the world shares the sorrow that Mrs. Kennedy and her family bear. I will do my best. That is all I can do. I ask for your help and God's.
Unbelievably, President Kennedy was dead. Unbelievably, that vibrant life had vanished. Unbelievably. President Johnson took up the task. He saw Defense Secretary McNamara, Secretary of State Rusk, former President Eisenhower, and with his wife, he joined the multitudes, paying last respects to his fallen predecessor. President Kennedy's coffin was borne on the same caisson which carried the body of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Leaders of 100 nations came in tribute. With his widow and with his two brothers, they walked to the church. A gathering such as this has never been seen in America. De Gaulle of France, Prince Philip of Great Britain, Erhard of Germany, the great among men. Past throngs who wept. A riderless horse, stirrups backward for the fallen chieftain. To the church of his faith. Here, where widow and children may seek solace in a faith which reaches beyond the grave. Here, where all men become equal. Here in St. Matthew's Cathedral in the city of Washington, a requiem for the repose of the soul of President Kennedy. It was a day of national mourning in his own land. It was a day when men around the world wondered how this thing, so needless, could have happened. Men wondered and found no answer. They could only pause in silence to mourn his passing. Thus was the life and the death of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. A light for eternity.
increasing frequency until it's become almost a daily event, American super fortresses have been taking off from Saipan to attack military targets in Japan. Saipan in the Marianas is only a dot on the map, some 1,500 miles from Tokyo, but after its capture from the Japanese, it was quickly turned into an air base. And now, once again, the B-29s are on their way with combat cameramen to make a record of this particular attack. That's Tokyo, 20,000 feet below, and the forts cruise over the Japanese capital, making sure of their target, while ack-ack shells burst pretty close. The Nakajima aircraft plant was the chief target, and in spite of clouds, we can see a bit of the plastering it received. Back on Saipan, the Japs have been bombing too, trying to smash the American base and destroy the super forts. Not without some success, as the picture shows. It also shows one of the enemy raiders being shot out of the sky. Above all, it indicates how well the Japs appreciate the menace of super forts, whose attacks, however, they are unable to stop. Will we find diamonds on the moon? Some geologists think so, and the Apollo 12 astronauts could be bringing back important evidence. But for Richard Gordon, Charles Conrad, and Alan Bean, the moon was theirs for the asking.
Running, commit, liftoff. We have liftoff, 11:22 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Chief Conrad reports that your program is in.
Okay, we just lost the platform, gang. I don't know what happened here. We had everything in the world drop out. There it is! Son of a gun! Right down the middle of the road! Outstanding, 42 degrees.
Conrad gave a nice laconic twist to Neil Armstrong's memorable phrase, a small one for Neil, but a long one for me.
No. Let me come. Gotta run through this crater. Here I come. Now, wait a minute. Wham, egress, 5, 6, 15.
The camera was upside down as Bean descended, but at least it was still working.
And actually, it went in sideways, and it kind of also covered with dirt. You wouldn't know what color it was. It's just sitting on the lunar surface, and I really find it hard to believe that the engine exhaust couldn't blow that rock away. It's only about 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches.
Inevitably, this Apollo 12 mission lacked some of the drama of that pioneering first landing. Terribly disappointing, too, the breakdown of the color TV pictures. We saw so little of this mission on the moon. For the complete record, we must await the color film to illustrate Conrad's delirious reaction. Holy cow, it's beautiful!